Shall we begin?
Hello YouTube friends, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I want to talk with you about multiple tanks. And sometimes people make fun of that subject and they call it multiple tank syndrome, MTS. I even have a video on it where I talk about it. But the truth is that multiple tanks actually is a real good idea, especially if you're thinking about cichlids. In a recent live stream, I talked about stocking your tanks and the kind of trouble that sometimes you can get into in stocking your tanks. One of the problems I talked about was buying fish that end up outgrowing the other fish, putting on a lot of size and becoming very, very aggressive, and then having to be rehomed. This could be, let's say you bought some peacocks and some Mbuna, and then the Mbuna put on size and started to become very, very territorial. You would have to make a choice. Do I get rid of the peacocks? Do I get rid of the Mbuna? Now, if you had additional tanks, you'd be able to create a tank for just one of those species and maybe create some cave work and some rock work and have a just Mbuna tank, which is what I probably would have done if I hadn't only had the 60-gallon tank when I started to have trouble with the mixed tank that I had originally when I got into cichlids. So multiple tanks give you a tremendous amount of flexibility, and in my case, I have a graduation system going on, a graduation system that I'll show you right here. You'll see what's going on with my tanks and how multiple tanks actually are providing me with a lot of flexibility that normally would have resulted in some very difficult choices, and in some cases the forced rehoming, selling, or giving away of fish that quite frankly I really wouldn't want to give away. So let me show you what's going on with my tanks right now and how having multiple tanks is actually helping me out. This is a Malawi hawk that I picked up from the cichlid shack, Aristochromis christi, I believe. And the time has come for this fish to go out of quarantine. He's been in this 30-gallon tank for about a month. So in this case, a multiple tank is being used to both grow out that long nose that you see in there, and also was used for about 30 days to quarantine this hawk. Now, normally when I'd pick up a fish, that fish would go into the 60, but this fish actually is too big for the 60 and probably too strong and too aggressive. So he's going to go directly into the 100-gallon. You can see here in the 60, I try and keep this tank to a certain size and a certain temperament. The fish in this tank are really, none of them are really too big, and none of them are really overly aggressive. They'll do an occasional nip here and there, but nothing really major. As a matter of fact, I just had to remove from this tank a male Livingstonii and a Nibochrombus that had put on some real good size and was showing some male colors, was fired up going after some of the females in here. I have, I believe, at least one female Livingstonii, possibly two, but I think one of those might be a subdominant male that was just very intimidated and wasn't showing any colors and may actually turn out to be a male. So I moved that one from this tank because I don't want any real heavy aggression in the 60 that could actually jeopardize the Lethronops redcap or the other Lethronops that are in there. So I was able to move that Livingstonii over to the 100. When I first moved him there, I had some considerations about whether or not he would be big enough, but as you can see here in this segment, you'll see here in this video, he's holding his own, and his size actually is very, very good for the 100. If he was much bigger than that, he would probably be trouble and would probably have to go into the 150. But I'll tell you right now, he's way too small for the 150. Those fish would probably harass him and probably even kill him. So he'll live in here until he puts on maybe an inch or two. And I do have quite a few fish in here. I'm going to have to really thin this out at some point. There are some fish, of course, like the flavescent and the white lips that I'll never give away. And the ruby red, the bicolor 500. But there's some fish in here, like I have 3 Buccochromis nodotaneus, and I'll probably keep 1 male, and so the other 2 will probably go somewhere else. Now here's the Malawi hawk, who has been moved into the 100, and you can see that size-wise he's actually fitting in pretty well. He was just put in there, and so I'm not expecting to see much color. As he starts to get more and more comfortable, he'll start to get that beautiful blue in the face and some nice blue throughout the body. But right now he's sort of in the shock of going into a new tank. A couple fish have sort of checked him out, and if you're familiar with cichlids, fish will usually go after a brand new fish for a little bit until the pecking order gets established, and then things will settle out, hopefully, unless there's something very, very wrong and a fish just decides to go ahead and continue to harass a fish. But I will have to thin this tank out. Maybe some of the gazelles, maybe some of the less dominant Placidochromis deep waters, a couple of those Buccochromis nodotaneus. There's going to be several fish that will probably have to be rehomed. I have an Autopharynx back there that I think is turning out to be a female. That one also may have to go. This Buccochromis here I'm hoping is going to be a male, but we'll see. I have 3 of them. I really hope that I didn't end up with 3 females. So this tank will get thinned out, and a couple of these, like the Star Sapphire, the Meduca White Lips, maybe even one of the deep waters, will be big enough so that they can go into the 100. Now, I tried putting them into the, into the 150. I tried putting them into the 150 a while back, and that didn't go too well. I had to take them out pretty quickly, because even though they look like a decent size in this tank, when you put them into the 150, they look like fry, because those fish are just so huge. I'm not sure if you can really tell how big they are when you see them on video, but they're all really, really good size. So the advantage here that I have is I can move between the 60, the 30, the 100, and the 150, and even a 10-gallon acrylic that I have. I can move fish around, I can quarantine, I can isolate, I can time out, I can move a fish out so I can medicate them. So these multiple tanks are providing me with a tremendous amount of flexibility and the ability to make necessary changes. So there you have it. You can see if I didn't have places that I could graduate fish to or rotate them around, I would have some serious issues. And that's besides the quarantine tank. I'm not even really considering the quarantine tank in all of this, since it's a given that you should have a tank that you can move a sick fish into right away, or put a brand new fish into until you're convinced that that fish is healthy enough to go into your show tank. So those are my thoughts on multiple tanks. I know that that's not practical for some of you. Some of you don't have the space. Some of you don't have the budget. I get it. You have to make do with what you have. They even have tanks now that are completely contained units, 5, 10, 20 gallon, little acrylic. I have one actually, and I use it sometimes as a quarantine tank. In a pinch, when I have the 30 gallon already in use, I'll use this little 10 gallon tank that I have. I forget who makes it. It has a filter, it came with a filter. I had to buy a separate heater, which you really don't need this time of year here in Southern California. But again, it's something that it's kind of like a parachute, you know. It's when you need one, you really, really need one, and you really should have one. So at any rate, That's it for me. Be sure to comment below and give me your thoughts on multiple tanks. I know some of you watching have 30, 40, 50 tanks, have many more tanks than I have. And some of you probably are just starting off with one tank. And I'd like to hear from all of you. Join that Convo gang, hit that bell, and let me know, let me know your thoughts. I love reading the comments, and I love watching the discussions that take place between you folks in the comment section below. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to sub and support the channel by getting a t-shirt. There's some t-shirts down there, and I just added a mug that looks pretty good. Go ahead and pick one up, and then you can have coffee with me during the live stream. How does that sound? All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.